Watch this. I asked my AI agent 2 questions, and each question took 20 seconds, and these were the results. For my first question, I asked my AI agent what firewall policy and interface will be used for traffic for a user with a source IP of 192.168.20.2 to an external site youtube.com on port 443 using TCP on the branch office firewall. And the results were, it provided me the policy ID, the policy name, the source interface, the destination interface, the action if it's accept or denied. In this case, it was accepted, and if it's NAT's enabled or not. For my second question, it's a little more complex. I asked, can you explain the routing path from 192.168.4.250 to 192.168.10.10 going between my headquarters firewall and my manufacturing firewall? So this was my result. So based upon the routing configurations, it's going to start with the headquarters firewall. It's going to tell me it's going to egress off VLAN 900. It's going to tell me what my next hop gateway is. And the reason for the next hop, it's a static route that exists. Now on my manufacturing firewall, it's going to tell me what which will be the return path. It'll tell me my egress interface is port 1. My next hop is 0.0.0.0. And the reason is there's a direct route. And based upon that information, it summarizes and says it's asymmetric routing detected. And then it gives a brief description. So that's an example of my 2 different queries. If you want some more information, you could look at my previous video. In this video, I'm going to go over how I integrated my FortiGate into my AI agent, how I'm handling my secrets and storing it in a secret manager, as well as the diagram that you're seeing right now, the general flow of how from initial query to the final response, how that all works. So stick around. So this is my branch office firewall, where under system administration, this is where my REST API is set up. So here I have my AI agent. Here the profile that's assigned to it is super admin read only. When you first initially create the REST API account, it will create a random string. In this case, I could regenerate if I want to. You could also restrict it to a specific host if you wanted to. Since I'm using the free VMware version of FortiGate, I've had issues, so I had to remove it. But let me show you real quick. So REST API, if I put test, admin profile, read only, disable, we're not going to put a trusted host. So when you do that, it'll generate a string. So what I do with this string is I save it in my secret manager. In this case, I'm using Infisical. So here is my API string that I've called FGT branch office. Now I am also using NetBox as my source of truth. So here I have my firewalls and my switches, and they're broken down by sites and have all the model and IP information here. So if I go into my branch office, so in here, it tells me what the model is. It tells me what the management IP is. And here, it has the same name in my secrets. So I have a custom field called FortiGate API token. So when I do my query, it's able to see this value, and then it's able to match that value with my secrets. And that's how it's able to get the API key securely without me having it in plain text or saving it to where it's visible in some sort of file. So I'm going to quickly go over this diagram as far as when I make a query, what happens and the logic it follows. So, and then I'll show the log file for the different containers that I have. So initially, when the user logs into the URL, I have a Streamlit front end. In this case, I don't have a reverse proxy, so it just skips this step and goes to my Streamlit front end. This is what it looks like. And then I have to log in. Since I already cached my credentials, it automatically logs me in. This is the first step for authentication. So once you're logged in, it will then send your query to my LangGraph agent. So here it sends the query with the token to my LangGraph agent. And from here, based upon my initial query, it's going to do a vector search to basically score my tools, and then it will send that information to my LLM. So here it sends my query to my LangGraph agent, and then it sends the tool candidates to my LLM. In this case, I'm using Google. So from here, this will now finalize what tools are going to be called. It will now return to my agent with the finalized tools it's going to use. But before it proceeds, it's going to look at my security.py file. I'll show you this real quick. So here I have a file called security.py, and what it has is a second layer of security. I have different tools for different servers, and based upon your group, you're able to access that tool. If you're not part of that group, so for example, here I have my LibreNMS Find endpoint where I have the two groups, AI agent and then AI agent network and then AI agent manufacturing. So both groups have access to this tool. Anything regarding to my FortiGates, only the network group has access to these tools. So that's as a second layer of security that I have. So once it verifies you're part of the group, then it will proceed to the next step, which means it will make the API calls to the different MCP servers. So in this case, for the query where I'm asking which firewall policy and interface will be used for traffic for a user, where we have the source information and we have the destination information, we have the firewall information. So the flow of how that works is, first, it will go to my routing analyzer MCP, and it gets the backup configuration from my Oxidize for the firewall to get the VLAN information for that IP address. And then the second part is, then it makes a second call to my FortiGate MCP. Now it has all the information it needs to make the API call to retrieve as to what policy it's going to match. Now, when all my containers start, as far as my secrets are involved, so all the way over here, I have my Invisical Secret Manager. When all my containers start, all my secrets are injected to each container. So each MCP server knows what the secrets are and it's saved in memory for each of my variables that I have stored here. So when it looks up the NetBox, where is it? Custom field for FortiGate API key FGT branch office, that MCP server already knows about what that variable is. So it's able to use that to connect to the firewall with that API string. If you find this architect breakdown helpful, hit the subscribe button. I do videos like this every week. Now let's take a look at the logs. So here we have our log file for our AI agent orchestrator. So here, I'm just going to highlight, it shows where I successfully authenticated. Here it actually shows my groups. Again, the groups is what I use to match as to if that person has access to a tool. Here's the first API call to my routing analyzer MCP, where it finds the interface. So if I go to my routing analyzer MCP, it's getting the IP address for the firewall. This is the name of the firewall from my NetBox. And then it's using that management IP to make the API call for the backup configuration in Oxidize. And in my query, I provided a source IP address so that it was able to find what the VLAN was. In this case, it was interface VLAN 20. So that was my first query to my routing analyzer MCPs. Now, once it gets the result, I go back to my orchestrator. Now it does the lookup policy, which is going to be the live API call. So it goes to my FortiMCP server. I'll go to that log. So here it's going to again find the management IP in NetBox for that firewall name, which is the FGT branch office. And then since it already knows about the variable, it will craft the URL, the API call to retrieve what policy matches the criteria we've laid out. And then it gives the information as far as what the policy it matched, and then it will return that information back to the agent orchestrator, and then it will provide the final response, which is what we see here. So that summarizes the overall flow of how my AI agent with my MCP servers and tools work. So for my next video, what I would like to focus on is working to populate this information on the firewall. So using SD-WAN, set up some type of BGP and then IPsec tunnel that we'll use to troubleshoot. Basically, it'll retrieve the information when something's broken, and then use the AI to help troubleshoot where the failure is to help quickly diagnose what the issue is. So I'll see you guys on the next one. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe. I appreciate everyone that subscribed so far. I enjoy doing this, so I'll see you guys later.